Hello, we're live. Hey, this is Cadillac, and this is the pre-fight scrum for UFC 239. I'm here with my co-host, Miguel Iterati, and we are here to talk about the UFC tonight and what CRP is going to do for you. Because here at the CRP, we recognize that Fight Week, International Fight Week, I guess it's called now, right, Miguel, is a big deal, and it's grown every year, and it's monumental. They just had two earthquakes between California and Las Vegas, which is obviously going to be something people are going to be talking about. One of them hit 7.3 on the Richter, which is a massive earthquake. So, fortunately, I guess it was in the desert, so not a lot of damage was done apparently. But I don't think that Vegas is so used to earthquakes. And then you've got the earthquake of the UFC and International Fight Week coming open. And I don't want to be insensitive about this, but nobody was hurt. First of all, okay, so let's get that out there. As far as I've heard, no one was hurt. But the UFC could, what if they would have called this UFC 239 earthquake? And then this actually happened. People would have been talking about aliens, and Area 51 would have come up, and who knows what. Miguel, what's going on? You know everything about Area 51, right? So tell me.
Wow.
We're staying dead on track. We're not getting off.
I could see that we're already doing good focusing on UFC 239. But I think if you're at the UFC and there's an earthquake, that you should probably go off into the desert and look for Area 51 during the day. There's nothing else to do in Vegas. It's a boring town. So
that it
is just something for you guys to think about. But it's not boring this week. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It gets bigger, and it's a big thing. The UFC's isolated this July 4th weekend, this first weekend of July, for several years now. And they do their, it's kind of like a convention where, fighters meet and greet people. And there are a lot of, opportunities to rub elbows. There are certain times where you have access to 15 fighters, and then they rotate and give you another 15. And it's, the guys that the UFC is interested in promoting. It gives you a good idea of what they're looking at and, what we might see pushed by them in the next in the next 18 months or so. So definitely Fight Week's big, and they're usually isolated for a huge card. And this card, I think, qualifies. I think what would be a good place to start the discussion for this card is a talk that we've avoided, and I wish Amanda or one of the other teammates were here for it. But should Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes beat the main event over John Jones and our buddy Thiago Santos there? It's a plausible argument in terms of Amanda Nunes is the two weight class champion. And, take it from there, Chad. I'll bounce it back to you. You give your opinion.
Okay, so which came first, the chicken or the egg, right? As a promoter, I look at this and I go, John Jones sells more pay-per-views than Amanda Nunes. John Jones is pound for pound the greatest fighter in the world, maybe ever. I don't necessarily buy that, but that is the dialogue that comes with John Bones Jones. And so John Bones Jones sells pay-per-views and he sells out arenas. Well, they're selling this arena out with this card. If Jones wasn't on it, this arena is still sold out and they're still selling massive pay-per-views. But what it comes down to, what my question is this: if they promoted Amanda Nunes, and just in general, if they promoted, I hate to say this, women's MMA, we try to avoid that because we don't want to make the separation between women fighters and men fighters, because on the CRP, we've always said fighters are fighters. And Miguel among with one of his old partners, and then again in Bodog, probably is the number one and number two biggest events to ever promote female fighting, that actually made the UFC really aware of it and made them come around and actually say, okay, we're going to allow females in, which was a no-brainer for anyone who'd ever seen a female fight. But Dana was just being a misogynist, and I don't know. We can do that later. But so having said that, as a promoter, I look at this and I go, well, what happens if I put Amanda on, if I place her on the top of this card with a fantastic fight against Holly Holm, which I think Holm's going to beat her. And what happens? She's champ. She's coming off this huge Cyborg win. What happens if I put her on there for her next pay-per-view? So in other words, is it just male privilege that allows John Jones to have this spot, or is it a matter of dollars? And then the secondary question on that I have for you, Miguel, is if it's not a matter of dollars, then on the male privilege side of things, if Amanda Nunes headlined this, would they sell more than if they sold John Jones? Or if John Jones and Amanda Nunes had two separate pay-per-view fights with the exact same card, who sells more pay-per-views? And that kind of answers your question. But take it from there, Miguel. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, no, I think I think you hit the subject of male privilege, and I think that's where this stuff starts to get a little murky, right? Because as a 2 division weight champion, on the run she's on, she's defeated 2 of the girls who were probably considered the #1 girl in the world at one point, So Nunes definitely has the resume for the conversation, but the male privilege conversation, I'm not the right person to have it, but because it's so entrenched and stuff. But, if you had the women's NBA and the men's NBA championships on the same day, if you had the, you pick the sport, wherever women have advanced, even in boxing, in boxing, within the last 5 years, the WBC convention put forth, and they had a separate women's convention, but they put forth a motion to make $20,000 the minimum for a world title fight.
Wow.
Okay, so they are just
explain to people why that's a wow factor.
Because $20,000 is basically tip money at this point, when we're talking about that level of the sport, especially when you get to world title fights among the men. They all, once they've elevated themselves to that level, they're beyond the $20,000 paydays. Now, some women have achieved bigger paydays, but in general, they're far behind. And part of that, you hit it on the head. It's economics. The economics of it, I don't see that changing much. And then when you consider, for example, it's like, and I don't know what the number is, but we've detailed it with the trans conversations that we've had of how men athletically and stuff have a different makeup than women. And, at the end of the day, the fastest 100,000, the fastest, the top woman is going to beat me in everything. But I'm an average guy. Once you start getting to the elite guys or to the elite, for example, 100-yard dashes, where is the fastest woman? Where would she rate on the men's side? In the top 10,000? In the top 50,000? I don't know what that number is. But that fact in itself, I think, makes athleticism or athletic endeavors a little more compelling to watch on the men's side. And I think that carries itself over because women do get into the sports more. I don't see as many men fans in the women's sports unless they have a girlfriend or some relation to the business or something. It's not like, I don't like the NBA. I watch the WNBA. That's not really a thing you hear a lot of men say yet. So is that men's privilege? Is that fair? You can't really decide anybody's choices, right? Women have the right to go ahead and back their leagues and stuff like that. And then you get into, they're financially maybe a little further behind than men and can't provide the support. And so it's a very complicated question. But I think at the end of the day, dollars and cents does rule out. And then in a purist standpoint, I think there is precedent, and I think I give credit to Amanda for saying this here first, and that is that there is precedent for them to put the heavier weight classes on last, like let the bigger guys close the show.
Okay, so I don't disagree or argue anything that you said there. What I can say is this: if on the undercard, Gilbert Melendez is on the undercard, and this is kind of a comeback for him. Let's face it, he hasn't been around in a while, and I can officially say this now. He has had stem cell treatment, and he is with BioAccelerator. So if you want to know more about that, ask me, comment, put it in the questions. I'll get you connected on how that works. But even the Melendez brothers are both doing it now, and many more are coming through BioAccelerator. Having said that, here's the thing. If you put, I think, okay, Ronda Rousey was obviously packing houses, and she was heading all of the cards, and she headed some pretty big cards. So the argument may not be so much about sex or gender, I guess. I'm not sure which way that goes really on this one. Gender and sex. It may not be that so much as, it's the dollars and cents, but I don't think that you hit the nail on the head in fighting. In basketball, football, all that, yes, seconds matter. In track, obviously, a millisecond matters. In fighting, as long as they're matched evenly, people don't care. They want to see a great fight. And so you're going to see some amazing fights on this undercard. And Miguel alluded to this earlier, that the things that you're getting ready, that what you're going to be in 18 months is what's happening on the undercard. Don't miss the prelims, because you're going to see a lot of those faces. Claudia Gadelha is going to be probably the fight that I'm more excited about on the undercard than any other, even Gilbert Melendez and all that stuff. And there's some fantastic fights on there. I love Claudia. She's amazing. She's a great wrestler. She hits hard. She never stops. She's got her black belt. She all of these great things about her as an athlete that I love. And I love her as a person, because she's really interesting and unique, and she's interesting to listen to. And I like listening to her speak. I like watching her. I like everything about her. I loved the Claudia Gadelha versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk tough series, whatever that season was. I loved that. I thought that was amazing. And for a long time, I argued that Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the most exciting fighter in the UFC. And she's kind of taking a downslide, and she's coming back. And don't count her out. She's going to be back, or at least I hope so. But what our friend Bob Voss could tell you, and Bob wouldn't mind us mentioning his name, we need to have him on sometime. Bob would tell you for sure that he'll go see any women's fight there is. Invicta, which is pretty much an all women's card. I think they do men a little bit now, but they're basically just a female MMA promotion, and they're the biggest. And then from Invicta, they get into the UFC. If they don't go through Invicta, they don't get into the UFC, unless Dana's doing the looking for a fight or whatever, or the Contender Series now. But anyway, what I'm saying is women's fighting, to me, very often is far more entertaining than men's, simply because, man, and this might come out wrong, but I just don't care. They have something to prove that men don't have to prove because of male privilege. And so because we as men just naturally expect that we're going to be on top of the card, when Ronda Rousey was on top of the card, people actually bitched about that. And Dana said, sell as many tickets as her, and I'll put you on top of the card. And then we got Conor McGregor a couple months later, right? So boom, 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 boom. You have this explosion. So it's all about dollars and cents. It's all about asses and seats. It's always going to be that way. But in MMA, I think the one thing that we miss is that females can be just as entertaining, if not more entertaining, as or than males, because I believe they're fighting so hard to prove they belong. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think there's definitely some validity to it. I think that the women, by virtue of the sport, I think you'll in normal walks of life, I think you're going to have the stereotype that's a man's sport. So the woman who participates in a combat sport, you know, probably classmates of hers are like, you know, she was always, you know, kind of athletic or kind of, you know, a gym person. She never played with dolls, you know, and I'm stretching the stereotype a little bit, but
Yeah, I get
I
it.
think they've already, they enter the sport with a little bit of that us against the world kind of mentality. And I think once you start excelling and moving up, if you keep that, there's some benefit to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, so they always have a little bit of an attitude when they're learning and things like that. And I think it shows too in professionalism. I think, you know, we've talked about it in other podcasts where, you know, in general on smaller shows, it's the women who show up on time for room meetings, et cetera, and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So once they've made that line and that move to enter what is a men's realm, you know, in at least the stereotypical high level look, I think, yeah, you're talking about people that are going through a very special mental process, you know, you know, something that really hardens you if it goes, you know, if you're able to channel it correctly and makes you probably a better athlete. In terms of the stuff in the ring, I agree with you that the women can fight just as compelling as the men. That, you know, good matchmaking and technique, especially that on the ground and things, you're almost susceptible to different techniques. They're much more flexible than men. So
Very true.
there's some possibilities there. The thing is that the power is not there, except for, you know, at the very elite and the heavier weights among the women. But, you know, that, you know, is one of the reasons why, you know, maybe watching, you know, 115-pound men, which we don't have a weight class, but if 115-pound men were performing, you'd probably see more knockouts than among the 115-pound women. That's an assumption on my part, but I'm pretty sure that would hold water.
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how that goes, but I do know this. I know that more people watch heavyweight boxing than flyweight boxing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of how it is. And so, you know, like you said earlier, you're working your way up the weight ladder, and, you know, we're going to finish with the big guys on top, and that's just the way it is. Even though you've got, you know, Mighty Mouse, who was pound for pound the best in the world, and I still think probably is. You know, when Demetrius was there, but he didn't make his pay-per-views were terrible, and so he never made the big dollars. And now you're asking Henry Cejudo saying, Dana, I want heavyweight money. Well, Henry, you have to sell heavyweight pay-per-views to make heavyweight money, right? So what is the answer to that? Conor did it.
Well, here's the thing: is the UFC they have to get behind you too, because some of what you're seeing there is their media machine can make or break somebody.
Yes.
And I think Ronda Rousey was a large part of their construction, you know, and I'm all right with that. The thing is that selection process is, you know, one that leaves a lot of people wondering, hey, where's my turn, or how come, why not me? You know what I mean? And that I think is the process. You can't make a star out of everybody like that, not a crossover star like that. So they're few and far between. So see, judo, I think here's the problem for me, and this goes across the sports, boxing as well. You know, there's a tendency in, you know, the bigger events and in events of boxing to bring in, you know, women models and things like that, you know, the ring card shows and things like that. I have nothing against that. You know what I mean? But in DJ's case, and in Cejudo's case, it will be the same. You're going to have guys like making muscles and acting big that literally the models behind them are bigger.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is, how do you overcome that? You can't have models for the little guys, you know? But then the show changes and people notice it anyway. So you get rid of models all the way, but that's such a tradition, you know, it's a tradition. And it's a way of, you know, keeping the community involved too, you know, at the end of the day, you know, bringing in models and things like that is always something that's been done because, you know, it sells as well. So, but that's the one thing that to me you can't overcome. It's like DJ sitting there making muscles. He's on the scale, which gives him another 3 inches. And the two chicks behind him are still bigger than him.
Well, here's the thing here's the thing that really grinds my gears, and I've always been bothered by this. When they talk about the fighter, oh, she's beautiful. I've never heard Joe Rogan say, John Jones is such a sexy man. On top of being a great fighter, he's also super hot. And wow, everybody's taking pictures of him, and he was going to be in Playboy or whatever. You don't hear those kind of offers, or I guess Playgirl or whatever it would be. You get the idea. And it really, really irks me when they show the headshots of the women fighters, and they have makeup on and their hair is done. And now some of them I know do that, but do you think Rose Namajunas is going, oh, wait, let me get all my makeup done and get prepared before you do my headshot? Really? Do you think Amanda Nunes is doing that? She doesn't wear makeup, but suddenly for the headshot, she looks like a candy-colored clown. And to me, it's just insulting. It's degrading to what women are doing for MMA, and we need to be making a change to go away from that. And I hope we're doing that. And one way that can be done is through, like you said, using the media machine of the UFC to heavily promote women's fighting the way they did Ronda Rousey. She was a very carefully built character. Everything that Ronda did was choreographed to some degree, down to the matchmaking. And the night that they put her up against Holly Holm, they didn't have, they didn't have anybody else to put her against that made any sense at all. And they thought, well, we can't do this, we can't do this, we can't do this because she'll lose. But she can beat Holly Holm. And then Holly went out there, and I mean, anybody who knows anything about real fighting, I couldn't believe they made that match. And I just think that they bought their own hype train at that point. And Holly went out there, and the first jab, that fight was over. 30 seconds into the fight, Ronda comes mauling across, and Holly goes, stick, and sticks her with one hard jab. And Ronda's eyes got about this big around, and she actually said she doesn't remember anything from that moment forward. I was with my wife and we were talking about it. We were, yeah, because we wanted Holly to win that fight, and we watch all the fights together. So my point to all of this is that 2 points. Number one, if without the media machine behind you, as you said, it's an uphill battle for them. Why on earth would they not have the media machine behind a champ who just took out Cyborg in, I don't know, 40 seconds, 48 seconds, whatever it was, who took out their Ronda Rousey champ, which they hated that. I mean, the air went out of that place. She didn't have to say shush because no one was saying a word. Everybody just went, oh, no. And I remember my wife and I watching that one, and I said, I love that just happened. That's really bad for the sport. And I can't believe they were dumb enough to put Ronda in there with Amanda before they gave her kind of a cooker fight, and let her warm up and win one more before she loses and goes out on her shield. You would have thought that they would have been smart enough to have made that last dollar figure on her first. Instead, they made it on Amanda. And that was just a really terrible idea. The UFC screws up sometimes too, I guess. Tell me what you think about the whole makeup thing, though, Miguel. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a long way to go. Like, just in terms of relations among men and women and stuff like that. And it goes beyond the sport. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm sure that they've got, some director or producer or someone who says, hey, Rose, go put on some makeup or whatever for those things. And yeah, I might leave it for that call, But at the end of the day, if they're channeling more money into the sport and the fighting and stuff, hopefully those things will become adjusted and won't be necessary. But I do think that that's what works against Amanda, is that she is a counterculture person. and that doesn't sit well with, you know, I know nothing about being on the inside, so everything I say here is an assumption. But what if that didn't sit 100% right? The counterculture thing with one exec at Reebok. You know, you're gonna piss Reebok off at this point. They clothe every one of your fighters. You know, or ESPN. You know, oh, we don't want to go that far. You know, we don't want to have a commercial where she's shown kissing her girlfriend after a victory. Well, why not? Because you're ESPN. Okay, so so you don't know exactly what they're reasoning. Maybe Dana doesn't like it. You know, maybe Dana's put off by it a little bit. Doesn't feel like he wants that presenting it. So there does come that where once you're a counterculture person, or what is considered counterculture now, and then in the future, hopefully, everything's a little bit more acceptable and stuff, right? So I don't know, but yeah, I think it's a little bit silly. I don't like, when you see a girl that doesn't wear makeup normally, being forced to put makeup on for the shows and stuff, especially when it's athletics,
Yeah, I mean, it's not a beauty contest. Hey, listen, this has been Cadillac. That's Miguel Iterati. This is the CRP. Stick around with us all night long because we're going to be covering International Fight Week, UFC 239, John Bones Jones, and the whole litany of the card that's going on. Do not miss the undercard. There are going to be some amazing prelims on there. People slept on the undercard for 238, and they missed Eddie Wineland on there. He's going to be on the show pretty soon, so I can't wait to have that. Hey, listen. It's been great having you guys there. Check us again. I know Devin's going to be doing feeds all through the night. I think he and Amanda have something set up for later. We're going to be doing a post-fight right here after the show, so we'll see you around midnight, 1, 2, whatever time it ends. It's probably going to be 2 in the morning for us, but we'll see you. We'll be here. So tune in, stay tuned, share this, follow, subscribe, and let us know what we're doing right and let us know what we're doing wrong. Thanks a lot. Anything, Miguel, before we go?
No, we touched on a bunch of different subjects, mainly, we talked about Gilbert Melendez a little bit. His opponent, Arnold Allen's a nice 14-1 guy. He's 5-0 in the UFC. So Gilbert was once, the best laid plans of mice and men. So maybe we could take that up on a later conversation today.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about stem cells again. Hey, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Until next time. Namaste.